guys, welcome to the Drawing Room Experts. This is Zaib. I hope you guys are doing well. Um, um, a few events happened over the last few weeks that got me thinking. As usual, I like to think and introspect. And they had to do with predominantly they had to do with intolerance, or the main theme was intolerance. And it was quite interesting that these events happened one after the other, and it wasn't like they weren't thematically tied together by any stretch of imagination. But I think um, the reaction, or um, the events that took around, or took place around those particular instances did have a common theme, which is what we're going to be talking about in this episode, which is intolerance. um I've always struggled with the idea of intolerance, I think, because um if you look at the meaning, the literal meaning of the word itself, um you will realize that it's just essentially, unwillingness for a person to accept that there could be a different worldview, or different opinion, or different take on things, different behavior, um you know compared to their own. And just by its own nature, that seems very hard to believe, because the reversal of that would mean that I'm expecting, actually, I'm going out of the world, I'm going out into the world, I'm going out into, meeting people and hearing what they have to say, expecting that they're going to be saying the same things that I want to hear. I think that's a very it's a very naive expectation in itself. And that, I think, it stems intolerance, that's why I think, stems a lot from naivete, and just not having the general understanding of how the world works, which is, you have people, different people have different opinions. And then also, I think there's another facet of intolerance that, I mean, I wouldn't want to call it intolerance, but it's sometimes considered as intolerance, which I also want to touch, but I'll look at that down the line. First of all, while you're listening to me, please subscribe to the channel on YouTube. If you listen to me on audio, as as I do, because I'm finding that doing these video podcasts are quite time consuming and very commitment oriented. So if you're listening to us on audio, on Spotify, on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, um, um, Podbean, what have you, Audible, do subscribe, rate the show, so that other people can also discover it. Anyway, going back to the topic. The couple of instances that really got me triggered into speaking about this were, number one, the recent attack on a religious scholar in Pakistan, hailing out of, I think, if I'm not mistaken, hailing out of Jhang in Punjab. His name is Engineer Muhammad Ali Mirza. So I've been following this person, listening to him for a good part of 3-4 years, or probably more than that. And he was recently, as he does on every Sunday, has a meet and greet session, a lecture, what have you, early in the morning, and extending over to the afternoon, and people come from all over the country, or even outside. They come to meet with him and exchange dialogues, or talk to him. He's quite a social media celebrity, if you like. And recently, a few weeks ago, during such meeting and such instance, there was one person who actually tried to kill him, or attacked him with, I think, a knife or something like that. Thankfully, uh, people were there. People were around there to stop him from actually causing some harm. I think Engineer Muhammad Ali Mirza was also injured very slightly on his arm or something. He actually then also followed up by waiving the police complaint against the person, saying that he was just misguided or whatever. But that's not the point. I think, and he has been attacked a few times before that. I think a couple of times at least, as far as my understanding goes. But so that was the first event, and then I think a couple of weeks later after that, there was another example of intolerance in Pakistan. I think around 23rd March, where LUMS University, organized an event. I'm not sure if this was an official event or maybe the student unions kind of organized it, but either way, it was organized at LUMS, an event to talk about the historical references and historical happenings of the separation of East Pakistan, which is now Bangladesh, and there are a lot of common themes in both of these instances where one is the attack on Engineer Muhammad Ali Mirza is the resultant of what something like a LUMS event would incite, if you know if you know what I mean. What I'm trying to say here is when the LUMS event got out there and organized, and people started to know about that this is going to happen and go down on the 23rd of March, which is significantly a historical day for Pakistan as a country, because it's a Pakistan day, and it's a Republic Day, whatever you want to call it. It's a day when the Pakistan Resolution in 1940 was approved by the Muslim League at the time, giving their complete blessing for the idea of an independent sovereign Muslim state. So it's a very historic day. It's a very nationalistic fervor day. We have parades and a lot of that stuff happening in and around the 23rd of March. So for LUMS to organize an event that talked about the historical grievances that if I want to refer them as grievances that led to the separation of East Pakistan, which is now Bangladesh. I think that event or reaction to that event kind of, in a weird way, or in a lot of ways, actually gives impetus for an event like the attack on Engineer Muhammad Ali Mirza to happen, because the immediate reaction for that was cancel the event. It shouldn't happen. It's they started talking about how it was factually incorrect, or how it was funded by the US. I happened to listen to a debate not a few weeks ago, actually last week, between a couple of Goras, actually, one of them being George, aka George ka Pakistan. The other gentleman, I'm forgetting the name. Both of them kind of came together on Twitter. There was a back and forth, and then they have like a 2-hour long debate on YouTube, which I happened to catch a few minutes of, and it was quite interesting and quite a dilemma that two white guys were kind of debating on the merits and demerits of having state dialogue in Pakistan. But regardless of that, I think one of the things that was brought up in that real little exchange between George and the other gentleman was that it was kind of like anti-Pakistan, or it was LUMS, because it's in large portions funded by USA. Therefore, there's an agenda-driven program. Blah blah blah. You know how it goes. I think what really happens in those instances where people like the gentleman that I'm referring to would come forward and talk about how this particular event is agenda driven, how this particular event is funded by the US or any other country for that matter, how this is just like fake Fox liberal kind of agenda being thrown down your throat to help you despise your own country or something like that. I think narratives like that as a reaction to that event cause your Mohammadi Mirzas to be attacked, in my opinion. And the core reason behind that is that we don't entertain or fight ideas with ideas. Maybe fight's not the right word, but tackle ideas with ideas. You cannot subjugate a large portion of society, or whatever portion of society, by suggesting, basically scare tacking them into submission. That may stop that particular group of people to stop propagating whatever they believe in, but it's not going to really have an impact or impact on the idea. An example that I always like to share is the advent of um, the persecution that the Shia Muslims in Pakistan have usually, historically have gone through. Now, the reason behind the persecution wasn't state driven, but it was more individual driven. Maybe state had a huge role to play in neglecting a lot of those elements, but that's beyond the point. But what happened is that you have these people who picked up arms against the Shia population in Pakistan, thinking that when they start killing them, they would let go of their ideas, their worldview, and succumb to that pressure. But that didn't happen. What happened was, people started leaving the country. People like myself, who are out and about in Europe or US or Australia. They took their whatever their ideas to countries where it was safer to talk about whatever they wanted to talk about or discuss. That didn't really kill the momentum or the narrative. It ended up actually escalating and spreading the narrative all around the world. So what happens now with these instances where you come and start canceling people, canceling events, canceling uh, uh, personalities based on what they believe in and whatever they want to preach, um, that doesn't really have an impact. You don't win, not even the battle. You win nothing in those instances. You actually end up scoring an own goal. It's an own goal. To take a football analogy, and yes, it is football, not soccer side by referencing to my last episode with Zaib. Uh, uh, going back to the point, is it's important to really address how ideas are supposed to be tackled. Um, Anyone who has an issue with a particular idea um, raises that issue with the thinking that they are right, with the thinking and belief that they are with the truth. Um, People who stand up against the women's march in Pakistan, they stand up thinking, believing, deep down in their hearts, that whatever they're trying to say to the women population is the right thing. It's the truth because it's coming from whatever their understanding of the religion is. So their arguments are based on whatever they conceive as is the truth. Same with people who were against the LUMS, university, kind of unnecessary to say university when it's called Lahore University of Management Science, but you know what I mean. Um, People who were against them holding those events, talking about the separation of Pakistan, and asking them to be cancelled or banned or whatever, right? They do that with the fervor, with the belief that whatever they are, whatever they think, whatever their worldview is actually the truth. And the irony is that people who do that, people who act intolerant, in my opinion, they believe that they were the truth. However, the truth doesn't really need it to be proven so aggressively. I mean, it's like saying the sun's out and the sky is blue and the night is dark, and then trying, tooth and nail to prove that. You don't need to prove it. It's very self-evident. Um, and for some, for someone to be convinced of that, you don't need to do much. You just need to reflect, have them reflect um, on their ideas, and if that really makes a difference, great. If not, then someone who doesn't want to believe that the sun is there and the night is dark, there's nothing you can do, right? So um, they feel like they're linked with the truth. They are doing the truth a service, but their intolerance kind of is an indication that maybe they are not with the truth, right? Because if they were to cancel each other because of whatever they believe in, that means that their truth is their truth can be handled pretty easily by the other party. You know what I mean? Um, which takes me back to my original point. If you want to really defeat, it's an aggressive word, but that's the only word I can think of. If you really want to defeat ideas, if you want to create a counter narrative, whatever it is, be it extremist religious beliefs or economy or social change, all of these things, if your perception, if your understanding of any of those instances is based on the truth, then engagement, debate in the right manner is the way to go. I mean, that's where I always fall back on is, if what I believe in is the truth, then I don't need to really engage in canceling culture or banning someone to actually for my truth to shine. Because if I need to cancel and ban someone for my truth to shine, then my truth's probably not the right truth. Do you know what I mean? So it's important that intolerance, in especially in Pakistan, and but by the way, when I speak about Pakistan intolerances, I only speak that because uh, speak about it because I am from Pakistan, and that's probably my closest association in terms of I follow the news over there on a daily basis. I hear about things, I listen to them and read about them. Not to say that I don't do that here in the US. And also not to say that there's no intolerance here in the US. I mean, just a few years ago, I think one of the episodes I hinted towards that, maybe if I'm remembering correctly. The whole point about like the whole idea that some people from the far right or whatever ideology were not allowed to speak at universities here in the US because they were considered far right, and liberals kind of canceled them because they weren't really obliged to listen to them, or they didn't want that idea to be floating around the university, which is kind of ironic because universities are there to have those exchanges of ideas and then test your truth against someone else's truth and see which weighs the heaviest. Because at the end of the day, this is not a tribe that you are associated with. It's not a team that you stick with at all times. Your team is the truth. Your team is not socialism, capitalism. Your team is not religion or atheism. Your team isn't um, Pakistan or East Pakistan, LUMS, whatever, right? That's not your team. That your team is the truth. So if your team is the truth, then uh, hear other person's truth out as well. Maybe because if you are associated, if you like to think that you're associated with the truth, maybe you would change teams and evolve yourself and really adapt to a better understanding of the truth that you've just learned based on those conversations. So there are, and there has been, instances of intolerance here in the US as well. So it doesn't really absolve any country if no matter how developed or lack thereof they are of having or developing some sort of intolerance. And God knows there are so many examples here in the US for in intolerance, but that's for another time. Um, The solution, like I said, I think I always like to end my mini rants, if you like, or these podcasts with what I feel is the right way to go. What kind of hope that I want to give out to anyone who's listening, and really try and give whatever, you know, whatever knowledge that I have, I try to give it out. And it's very limited knowledge, mind you. So full disclosure. But my conclusion to this discussion would be, hear the other person out. I think if you really are team truth, hashtag team truth, you shouldn't really mind hearing the other person out, because they're there to really suggest what the truth is. You're there to propagate what your true truth is, and then see which one stands the true test of truthiness, as Stephen Colbert would say. um, so dialogue, discussion, debate, nothing, absolutely nothing, and I mean this to the most extreme sense, nothing. Religion, tenets of religion, philosophy, economy, patriotism, nationalism, whatever, anything, nothing is off the table when it's time to debate these ideas, because it's important to think about these ideas and constantly try and involve yourself. So nothing should be off the table. Obviously, it goes without saying that a decorum should be maintained, that you're respectful with people with other ideas. But you should hear the other person out, and really only you can be the judge whether they're telling the truth or not, whether you are actually team truth, um or you're just tribal in your instance, and you're just doing whatever your grandparents did, or whatever your friends do around you, or whatever your siblings do. So you're just married to this idea that you're probably looking out for the truth, but you're just you're really tribalistic and just associated with a team because you've just been following that team for a while, like Liverpool for me. Yeah, we lost 3-1 to Madrid, by the way. Anyway, for another time. Anyway, so like I said, subscribe to the channel. We'll be back with another one. And all right, stay safe. Cheers. We'll see you again. Bye.